So Galileo helps fintech companies move money. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why moving money is actually harder than you would think. And the way I'm going to explain moving money for fintech companies is highways. So if you think of US highway systems, I'm going to pretend that the cars and vehicles are payments being moved between two parties. And that's how I'm going to build upon this. So let's start off with just what fintechs are and what they're trying to do. So fintech companies are, they have an idea or a product, and what they're trying to do is get a bunch of people to use these products because that makes them a lot of money. So how do they get a lot of people to use these products? Well, they have to move money. And in order to move money, there's two ways you could do it. You could do it yourself or have somebody else do it. In this case, our case is going to be Galileo. And why would you want to have somebody else do it? Because it's complex. In order to explain this, we're going to imagine that this is a highway, and down here there's cars and vehicles, or otherwise known as payments, transactions between banks and businesses and stores and people sending money. Now, if you take a bird's eye view of an actual highway, you'll see cars moving this way and cars moving that way, and it looks simple and it looks easy to understand, but you don't realize that all the cars need gas. There's cops on the road that have their own rules. You have signs and stoplights, and also people working on the highway constantly building new things, and then also pouring concrete and fixing things. And it's a lot more complex when you dive deeper into the highway system. And that's the same thing with payments, right? So you have all these companies that do specific things to make this whole thing work. You'll recognize some of the companies that I'm listing here. This is where it gets a little bit more difficult to explain, and I don't think I'm actually qualified or understand this enough in order to be able to explain this to you guys. So these companies run this highway, but I don't want to leave you with that, so I'll explain a little bit of why this is complex. Let's go up here. Moving money is not easy, and the reason why it's not easy is because there's a lot of ways to pay. And because there's a lot of ways to pay, it makes a complex system. And when the system is complex, there's a lot of people that try to solve those complex issues, and all those companies and businesses charge a fee for doing so. And this is kind of how the system works right now. This is whenever you go to a store and you try to buy something, here you are, you go to the store, you try to buy it. These are all the steps in order to get your money to the person you're trying to pay. You got payment gateways, payment processors, card networks, and issuers. These are those people. And they're all working together to build this highway. And fintechs want to get their product on this highway. They have two options. They can do it themselves, or they can hire Galileo or some other company that does something similar, right? So let's focus on the do-it-yourself part and why you probably wouldn't want to do it yourself. So in order to do it yourself, you got to build APIs. Now, a simple way to explain what APIs are in this idea that I've created with the highway is that in America, highways are run by the governments, but not all roads are run by the governments. So if you build a business next to the highway, you're going to have to build your own parking lot, right? You're going to have to paint your own white lines, and it's going to cost your business money to paint those lines. And then also you're going to set up gates and fences sometimes if you're protective of your business. And you're going to have to build a road to the highway, and it has to work well with the highway. So like you can't just have a road that's only good enough for golf carts. So there are certain specs that you have to work to make your payments move from your business to this highway. And if you don't do it right, things will break. So you're going to have to hire people to build APIs to connect your business to that highway. And what does that do? That's going to be expensive, and also it's going to take employees away from building your product or idea. And then also, as you get bigger, there's going to be more problems. First off is fraud. If you're building a fintech company, if you have 100 users, there's probably not going to be a lot of fraud, because who wants to go and scam people at a store that doesn't have a lot of users? So whenever you have 100 users, it's not going to be the same as when you have 1 million users. And when you have 1 million users, it's going to be harder to detect because there's more users. So the only way to do it is through software, which you're going to have to build yourself, or you're going to have to hire somebody. And if you start off this way, somewhere down the line, you're going to have 1 million users, and you're going to realize like, you can't do this. This is too hard. You're going to have to get one of these companies, the sea of companies out there, to do it for you. And so you're going to have a company doing fraud and company building APIs and another company doing this, and it's going to be expensive and it's going to be complex. And now this system that you're trying to connect to that's already complex in the way it's already set up is going to be complex inside your business as well, which adds just more expenses. And then also, why would you want to do it yourself when you're trying to compete with other fintechs that are already built this way, right? So if you're trying to compete with Robinhood, Coinbase, or Affirm, why would you want to build this infrastructure yourself? Why wouldn't you just hire a company to do it for you? So this is the idea of Galileo, right? Galileo, a lot of people think Galileo is just like a new company, but it's not. They've been building these products since 2001. They're really good at it, actually, and all of these products already work from day one. So SoFi owns Galileo, and Galileo already has all these products that work perfectly. In fact, they work so well that most of the things that Galileo does today isn't building this. They're building things that support this. So a fintech company will come to Galileo and let's say they'll get the crypto option and then they'll build their fintech crypto business. And one day they're going to be like, you know what, let's get a debit card on our fintech company and let's offer a debit card to our users. So Galileo will be like, okay, we'll give you the debit card software and you could start offering debit cards to your users on your crypto fintech app. All of a sudden, the fintech has some fraud issues because they have millions of users, right? Galileo has built tools to help these companies really efficiently identify fraud on a massive scale. In 2018, I think, there's a video on Galileo. I think it's one of the first videos. You can go to Galileo's YouTube channel, go to the very last video on Galileo's YouTube channel, and you'll see the former CEO, Clay Wilkes, talk in depth about their dynamic fraud engine. What their dynamic fraud engine is a software that enables fintech companies to accurately figure out fraud on their business. And immediately from day one, when you start using Galileo, you'll save millions of dollars because let's say you are a company that has 10 million users or 10 million, let's say 10 million users, and there are some sort of fraud on your business. Galileo will help you find and eliminate that fraud and save your business a lot of money. They do this through open APIs, which is preferable to developers, of course. So how does this, so here's a mistake that a lot of people make about Galileo online is they think because this system is so complex, they think Galileo is competing with Visa or MasterCard because they see this part right here. Like Robinhood uses Galileo's debit card product. And a lot of people will be like, well, why doesn't Robinhood just use Visa? Well, they kind of do, or they use MasterCard, but it's not the same thing. Galileo is just building the infrastructure like close to the business, not the highway. Visa and MasterCard are on the highway. So that's another way of like looking at it. Galileo is something completely different. They're not even competing with Visa or MasterCard. They're just helping fintechs access this highway. So why did SoFi buy Galileo? Well, SoFi saw the value that Galileo was providing to fintech companies, and they want to build an even bigger platform underneath Galileo. So Galileo is going to be one of the products that SoFi offers. This is why they bought Technisys, because Technisys does kind of a similar thing as Galileo, but they kind of do it for banks. You can imagine Galileo working for new companies like fintech companies, and Technisys working for old banks. So I don't know a whole lot about Technisys because it is new. I think it's just like over 210 days old from the time that SoFi acquired it. So it is very new. We don't know a whole lot about Technisys compared to Galileo. But the idea is that the banks that are physical locations in the future are going to have a hard time competing with fintech companies that have the lower operational costs to provide products to their users. So in the future, fintech companies are going to have a home field advantage to compete with brick and mortar banking because who wants to apply for a bank account at a local branch that doesn't have a good looking finance app? In the future, 10 years in the future, old banks are going to start going out of business more and more frequently because they're going to start looking more and more like bookstores did to us back in the old days of the early 2000s. So that's the same thing that SoFi is anticipating. So SoFi is going to try to capture new fintech companies and old banks as we move into the future of more and more online payment systems, right? So SoFi is trying to build Technisys and Galileo out to be like a more of one-stop shop for any fintech company and any old bank to move their software onto SoFi software. So why does SoFi want to do this? Why does SoFi want to own this part of finance, right? Why do they want to own that? Well, one, we're moving in that direction already. So kind of like if you think of Jeff Bezos already knew that we're moving online. So he made AWS to capture everybody that's going to be moving their businesses online in the future. They're all going to run on AWS. So Anthony Noto is anticipating in the future we're going to be moving away from old banks and moving to fintechs. So he's building this system to capture old banks and new banks, new fintechs, and he's building a very large platform to capture this entire area. But not only are they going to do that, they're also going to be capturing all the data from here to here. So you have this highway. No one company has all the data going through this highway. So it's impossible for a company to accurately grab data from this point of the highway to this point of the highway because there's so many companies running on it that protect data and don't let other companies know. So SoFi is like, okay, well, I'm going to gather all the data from here to here. So they're not going to get all the people on the highway, but they're going to get all the people getting off the highway onto the fintech companies private road. You know what I mean? SoFi is going to have so much data coming back from this area that they're going to be a data monopoly in the future because they're going to own this whole space and all the people on it. That's the idea. That's how SoFi is going to grow. This is my understanding of SoFi. I'm fairly certain I'm wrong about a lot of things. If I am wrong, please in the comments let me know where I am wrong so I can highlight your comment and so I can understand this company better. But this is a basic understanding of Galileo and how this whole system works. If you enjoyed it, I put a lot of effort into this, so if you enjoyed it, please leave a like and a comment. It does help me reach other SoFi investors and help me explain to other people how this company actually works. Have a wonderful day. I'm glad that you guys made it to the end. Thank you.